Okay, so what we're going to do here is learn how to modify the homepage slider, or what's called slider revolution. This is probably the most complex part of this website, and I would say the most powerful, because you can create really nice presentations on any web page just by learning the ins and outs of slider revolution. So let's start at the very beginning. This is the dashboard that you're going to get when you first sign into WordPress. And I like to minimize these so it's less cluttered. So once you're in here, what you want to do is look over here at the bottom left, and you want to click on Slider Revolution, which is right here. Hover over that and then hit Slider Revolution. And it's going to load up the default dashboard for Slider Revolution. And most of this stuff you can ignore. Anything kind of below this line you can ignore. But let's go ahead and look at kind of how these sliders are set up. So right here you'll see where it says Revolution Sliders, and we have two created here. This was for a demo Florida page that I was working on that's not used anymore. And right here, this one where it says Home Rev, this is the actual homepage slider. So if we click on this to edit this slider, it's going to pull open the actual slide editor. So these are the different slides that are in the master slider for the home page. And you can add that particular master slider to any page you like. But these are the actual slides. So here's the first slide right here. And this is the one that you see when the website first loads up right here. But you'll notice there's two things here. One, there's some black text right here in front of this bright text back here. And that's because this is a separate layer just for mobile-only devices, and this is a separate layer for desktop devices. So in the editor itself, it may look a little funky. Also, you have two buttons here, Quick Quote and Free Sample. This is all basically dependent upon what device they're on. So you can think of these sliders as multiple layers in one file, similar to a Photoshop file, where you can tell each layer what you want it to do and how you want it to behave per the different device, which is done here in the visibility tab. So here you can see what's visible. Like for example, this button, we want it to be on in mobile, we want it to be on tablet, but not on laptops and not on desktops. So if we click on this button, it's the opposite. We want it on desktops and laptops, but not tablets and phones. So it's pretty cool, pretty intuitive. I'll drive into that while we actually make our new slide. So from here, what I want to do is create a new slide. So you can do it a few different ways. You can duplicate an existing slide, and it'll take all of the same data and just move it to another slide that you can just modify, or you can create one from scratch. So for this video, let's go ahead and create one from scratch. So you're going to hover over the blank slide area and hit Add Blank Slide. And it's going to go ahead and load up a new window. And if you scroll down, you'll see that right now you don't have anything set up yet. So the first thing that you need to do when you make your slide is determine if it's going to be an image-based slider, just a solid color, perhaps a YouTube video background, or an HTML5 video. So for this demo, we're going to make it an image background, and that's basically the same thing as what this slide is here, where it shows the bar chart. The next slide that it loads up here is an actual HTML5 video. So we give it a cover photo of the actual initial frame of the video, which is the drone video, and then we tell it to load the drone video. So two different slides right on the home page, but we're going to go ahead and use an image. So from here, the first thing you want to do is select the main background image. So hit Media Library, and you can upload a new image here. And to give you a quick guideline, you want that image to be 1920 pixels wide by at minimum 800 pixels high or better. So that'll maintain your proper resolution. So for this one, we're going to actually use something that's already in the library. We're going to use this image here. So you just click on it. And for SEO purposes, you're going to want to make sure that the title, the caption, the alt text, and the description are all matching. And you want to make sure that the data that you put in here isn't too long. So try to keep it between, a sentence or a couple of words, something that would explain this picture properly. Don't put, like for example, if you're using this camera picture and we have video success stories, but if you change this into like direct mail marketing for the, affluent, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't match this, Google's engine is pretty intuitive on understanding that this is a camera. They know what this is, and your alt text doesn't match, so your site will get a red flag. So make sure you explain what the actual image is. So once you click it, it'll make this little check here, hit the insert button, and if you scroll down now, you'll see that it's going to use this image as the background. So now that you already have your background, the next thing you're going to want to do is give it some text so you can make it look something similar to this. So hover over Add Layer and then hit Text, and it's going to open up the default text caption box. Here, let's go ahead and make it say Rsvp Publications, and you'll see that it'll change in live view here, and hit OK. And this is basically what it's going to spit out, something kind of boring, defaulty, not really attractive. So what you want to do now is give it some style here in the Style tab. So the way the Rsvp site is set up is we're running a font set called Railway. So what you want to do is go over here where the font family is and click on it once, and it'll highlight, and just start typing in Railway and find it right here. And it'll change the font into Railway. Then you want to change the font size, which is right here, to something more attractive, something more heading-like. So let's try 70 pixels. And let's change the weight of the font, which is here, to 900. So in font weight, 100 is thinner, 900 is bigger. So you can kind of get an idea. That's how Railway is set up anyways. So let's go ahead with this for the master heading. And for justification, if you want to lock everything to the center per layer, you can look over here. You can go layer align left, center, or right. This is where you'll tell it to place itself on the x-axis of the actual, website interface. So you can also kind of have free reign and drag it around wherever you want. So it's going to change all the code in the back end accordingly. So right here, let's kind of place it right there for now. And then before we go any further, every time you create a layer in your slideshow, it's going to place something down here in the timeline. Now the timeline is set up to where this is the start or the beginning of your slide. This is the entire life of the slide, and here's the end duration. So you can control how long the slide is going to run by dragging this option, and then you create each individual layer and how long those are going to run in the slideshow based on the master. So right now we can do a demo play and play that slide, and this is how everything is going to come in all at once, and it's going to take 300 milliseconds to load. So if we play that, we can see how fast Rsvp Publications comes in. But if we tweak it and say we want it to wait maybe 300 milliseconds to load, and we want the layer to take, say, 2,000 milliseconds to fully load up, which is here, and we refresh and replay the same slide, it'll come in real gradual, so it looks more cinematic. So if you think about the actual the actual layout of how this is set up, you could create an entire presentation just in one slideshow by messing with the timeline. You can make things appear and disappear. Over here, this little area down here that's kind of cut off on my window. This is basically saying to wait. If I can get this to kind of expand out. That's not going to let me do in a screencast. But if you come down here, it says wait. If I tell it to maybe stop loading here, it'll disappear. So hit play, it'll load up and then disappear, which is cool. So you can really get creative with slideshows and sliders and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and make that run the entire duration. Let's change when it comes in to maybe something back here. There, that's cool. Okay. So now what we want to do is create another layer. So you can either right-click on this and you can duplicate it, or you can start from scratch again like we did before and create a new layer. So why don't we go ahead and add a new layer for the video's purposes and call this Advertise to the Affluent. Just like that. And let's hit the check. And let's move this under here, and let's give this some style. So change it from Open Sans to Railway again. Let's go 700 on the font. You can also change your letter spacing, which is kind of fun, like that, which is pretty cool. 40, you get the idea. That's kind of neat. Let's go 16. That's cool. And for this slide, let's actually make everything in the center just by clicking on the center tool. Looks pretty good. So now let's go ahead and look at our timeline here, and we'll change when we want this one to come in, like that. That looks pretty neat. I like that. Match that back. Cool. Okay, so now let's give this a call to action. So typically slideshows have a main heading, they have a subheading, and then sometimes they'll actually have some explanation text, which is what we have here. Okay, so here you're going to add a layer text, and for this time, let's give it a bigger paragraph here. So let's say we want all of this text to appear below the slider. We're going to go ahead and create our text layer. We're going to paste in all of our text here. And you're going to notice right off the bat that it makes all of the text go way off the screen, which is not cool. So what you're going to want to do next is find this little option here, which is auto line break on off. You're going to want to turn that on here. And let's change our text box to be smaller, which is here. Just drag those corners down. And we want the text box to appear right about there. And let's give this a default font size of, say, 16, like that. So there's your main title, your subtitle, and your description text. So now what you want to do is give this a call to action. So typically that's a button. So if you hover over Add Layer, and you'll find Button, this is where you can really decide some custom buttons here that really work well. I like to give it some style before I drop it in. So the idle state on this, instead of gray, let's make this yellow. And hit yes, and this is going to be the style. The color is the font color. Let's make the font color black so it contrasts nicely. And this looks pretty cool. So if you like the way this looks, you can do that here. If you want to add a border to it, you just say 3, and it'll put a 3 pixel border on it. Say 10, it'll put a big 10 pixel border on it. 1, it'll do a 1 pixel. So let's keep the 1 on there for now, and let's say maybe instead of the background that color, let's go with more like Rsvp red, and let's go white on the font, like that, something like that. Border maybe white, something nice and clean. And let's choose this one. And it'll place that here. You could double click it now and say, let's say, get a free sample. Just like that. Hit the check and drag that to where you want it, somewhere around here. And then you can just hit auto align for the center, and it'll center it up nicely. Now, you're going to need to give this button some style. So you can leave it default, which looks okay, or you can give it some font weight by clicking the font weight button here. Say give it a 900. And line height is actually going to determine how high or how much padding your button has up and down. So let's change this to like 27 so it's a little bigger, just like that. Now you're going to want to give it some action. So if you click on it once more, you click on the Actions tab, which is here. There's going to be a blank area. Hit the plus button, and you're going to say on click right here. Currently it's disabled. You're going to add a simple link, which is here. And I would leave all this default. You want it to open in the same window. Unless you want it to open in an external window, then you would change that to new window. And here's where you're going to put the URL of the link. So for demonstration purposes, let's hit the contact page. And let's grab the URL of the contact page, which is here. Copy it. And you just simply paste it here, and that's it. Now it has an action. So if we save this now here, hit save, we can go back to the home page and hit refresh, And what this will do now is it'll show our slide at slide position 3. So if I just go back here, it'll do something like this. So it looks like we have a little bit of a wrap issue here. What I did was I clicked on this and I hit the text auto line break to off. And that'll fix your button wrapping issues. So let's go in here and let's kind of tweak the timeline to kind of make this kind of cascade in, and then make the button the final thing that loads up. And hit save up here, this green area. And then hit refresh. Oh yeah, and you can change the order of your slides too by just going up here and dragging this to first, and it'll auto-save. And then you just save the slide. So refresh, and now that'll be the first slide that loads up. Pretty cool. So another thing you can do here before I turn this video off is, let's go back to the main background, and let's go ahead and click on something called Ken Burns. This is the Ken Burns effect. This is where something kind of gives it like a cinematic zoom. So be careful on how much you use this, because you can give people a headache, but a subtle movement of the background image is really cool. So if I click on Ken Burns and I turn it on, don't touch any of this other stuff, but look at the scale. Tell it to go from scale 100 to 103. That's a good test, and hit save. And then what we're going to do once we refresh is you're going to see the background image slightly move toward the viewer, which is cool. So it gives it some motion. See here? It's moving, which is pretty neat. So it kind of gives it like a cinematic movie look. On this area here, this looks really good. But what we want to do, if we go back to this slide, let's look at something. Let's get back over there again. This looks really good, but this all looks nice and centered, but this text is left justified. What we want to do to change that justification is you're going to click on Style, then click on Spaces. Once you have this selected, obviously, click on Spaces, and then there's this little area here where it says Text Align. Click on that, or don't click on it, but look over here and make it center. And then this way everything looks really nice and cascades down really good. And then hit save. And that'll pretty much finalize your slide. Now you can get into creative animations, and instead of these fading in, maybe you want to make this main title. If you click on animation, instead of fade in, maybe you want to make this letters fly in from the top, which is cool. Sometimes this works cool, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you got to mess around with how big the window is. I don't know, I don't really like this one. But let's go to, actually, yeah, version 5.0. This is kind of cool. And always when you're messing around with styles and stuff, always go back to style and realign it so it doesn't get out of whack. So I'll make that one come in from the top. Let's make the left one. Let's make that one come in from the left, which is cool. And let's make this come in from the bottom. And then we'll make the button. Let's go short from bottom. So it just kind of comes up like that. Hit save and refresh the slideshow. There you go. So you can really get creative on how these slides work. So I don't want to take up too much time on this video. It's almost a half hour. But you get the general gist. If you have any questions, always shoot me an email or a text and I can help you out. But this will get you started, and then we can get into more advanced features as we move forward. So, okay, hope this helps you. This helps you.